When Marcus Chen received the envelope marked Urgent Private at his apartment door at midnight, he never imagined opening it would expose a secret so devastating it could destroy 3 lives forever. Inside was a cashier's check for $10 million and a single typed note. "Take this money and disappear. Never contact Emma again. You have 48 hours to decide." Marcus stared at the check, then threw back his head and laughed, a sound that echoed through his modest Queens apartment and startled his sleeping daughter in the next room. Because what the sender didn't know was that the man they were trying to buy off, this single father scraping by as a night janitor, was actually worth $400 million. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. But to understand how a billionaire tech mogul ended up cleaning office buildings at 3 in the morning while his 5-year-old daughter slept alone, we need to go back 18 months to the day Marcus Chen made the most important decision of his life. The glass towers of Silicon Valley gleamed like knives against the California sky that Tuesday morning in March. Inside the 42nd floor of the Chen Technologies headquarters, Marcus stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the empire he had built from nothing. At 34, he was the youngest self-made billionaire in the tech industry, his facial recognition software powering everything from smartphone security to airport customs. His black hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal Armani suit tailored to precision, and his steel-gray eyes reflected the calculated intelligence that had earned him comparisons to the great tech titans of his generation. But none of that mattered anymore. On his mahogany desk lay a manila folder that had arrived that morning via secure courier. Inside were medical records, court documents, and a single photograph that had stopped his world cold. The photo showed a little girl with enormous dark eyes and silky black hair sitting on a hospital bed and clutching a worn stuffed elephant. Her name was Lily Chen, and according to the DNA test results clipped to the back of the photo, she was his daughter. Marcus sank into his leather chair, hands trembling as he reread the letter from the family court. Sarah Kim, a software engineer he had dated briefly 3 years ago, had died in a car accident 6 weeks earlier. She had never told him about the pregnancy. For 2.5 years, she had raised their daughter alone, working part-time while battling a chronic illness that had eventually made her too weak to continue. When Sarah realized she was dying, she had reached out to the court system, desperate to ensure Lily wouldn't end up in foster care. The court documents were clinical, but Marcus could read between the lines. Sarah had tried to protect him from the responsibility while she was alive, not wanting to disrupt his meteoric rise in the tech world. But love for their daughter had overridden her pride in the end. Marcus studied the photograph again. Lily's eyes held a wariness that no 5-year-old should possess, the kind of guarded expression that comes from too much loss at too young an age. She was small for her age, the medical records noted, likely due to the stress and instability of her mother's final months. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, quickly sliding the folder into his desk drawer. Rebecca Hastings entered, her heels clicking against the polished floor. At 42, Rebecca was everything Marcus had thought he wanted in a partner. Brilliant, ambitious, and stunning in the way that graced magazine covers. As the chief marketing officer of a rival tech firm, she moved in his social circles, understood his world, and never questioned his 18-hour workdays. They had been engaged for 8 months, their upcoming wedding planned as a merger of 2 tech dynasties. "You missed the investor meeting," Rebecca said, her voice carrying the edge it acquired when things didn't go according to her schedule. "Thompson and Associates waited for 20 minutes before I had to make excuses." "I apologize," Marcus said, though his mind was still on the little girl in the photograph. Something urgent came up. Rebecca's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. More urgent than a $40 million investment deal? Marcus looked at his fiancée, studying the woman he had planned to marry in 3 months. Rebecca lived in a world of galas, charity boards, and power lunches. Her idea of domestic life was hiring the right staff to manage her Malibu estate. She had made it clear from the beginning that children were not part of her 5-year plan. "Rebecca," Marcus said slowly, "what would you say if I told you I just discovered I have a daughter?" The change in her expression was immediate and complete. Her polished composure cracked, revealing something cold beneath. "Is this some kind of joke?" "It's not a joke." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, her manicured fingers drumming against her designer purse. "How old?" "5. Her mother died recently. She's currently in temporary foster care." "I see." Rebecca's voice became the tone she used in hostile negotiations. "And what exactly are you planning to do about this situation?" The word situation hit Marcus like a slap. He stood up, walking back to the window. "She's not a situation, Rebecca. She's my daughter." "Marcus, be practical," Rebecca said, her voice softening in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "You're at a crucial point in your career. The IPO for the new AI division is next quarter. The wedding is generating massive PR. A surprise child from a previous relationship would complicate everything." "Complicate everything?" "Yes. Look, I'm not saying abandon her entirely. Set up a trust fund. Ensure she has good schools, proper care. There are excellent boarding facilities that specialize in these situations. But bringing her into our life, into our world? Marcus, think about what you're suggesting." Marcus turned to face her. "What am I suggesting?" "You're talking about instant parenthood, about disrupting everything we've built together, about becoming a single father to a traumatized child you've never met. Do you have any idea what that would mean?" The honest answer was no. Marcus had never changed a diaper, never soothed a nightmare, never negotiated the complex terrain of a 5-year-old's emotions. His own childhood had been spent with nannies while his immigrant parents worked multiple jobs to build their small restaurant business. He had sworn he would never have children unless he could be the father he had wished for, present, engaged, and emotionally available. But looking at that photograph had awakened something in him that all his success couldn't touch. For the first time in years, something mattered more than market shares and profit margins. "I need to meet her," Marcus said quietly. "Meet her?" "Marcus, you can't be serious. The moment you walk into that foster home, you're committing to something irreversible. The media will find out. Your investors will question your focus. And what about us? What about our life together?" Marcus looked at the woman he had planned to marry, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. "What about her life, Rebecca? What about what she needs?" "What she needs is stability and proper care, which money can provide. What she doesn't need is to be dragged into the chaos of your world just because you're having some sort of paternal crisis." The words hung in the air between them, revealing a chasm Marcus hadn't known existed. "I'm going to meet my daughter," he said finally, "tomorrow." Rebecca's composure returned like armor sliding into place. "If you do this, Marcus, if you choose this path, don't expect me to follow. I won't be part of some instant family experiment. I have my own career, my own goals. I never signed up to be a stepmother to a child with abandonment issues." "Then I guess we have different definitions of what a family means." Rebecca walked to the door, then turned back. "You're making a mistake, Marcus. You're throwing away everything you've worked for because of some misplaced sense of guilt. That child has been fine without you for 5 years. She'll be fine with or without you now. After she left, Marcus sat alone in his office. As the California sun set behind the mountains, he pulled out the photograph again, studying Lily's small face. She was fine, Rebecca had said, but was fine enough? That night, Marcus called his assistant and cleared his schedule for the following day. He had a daughter to meet. The San Mateo County Children's Services building was a far cry from the gleaming towers of Silicon Valley. Built in the 1970s, it squatted like a concrete block among strip malls and chain restaurants, its windows small and uninviting. Marcus sat in his black Tesla in the parking lot for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel and trying to calm his racing heart. He had faced hostile takeover attempts, congressional hearings, and media firestorms, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Through those glass doors was a little girl who shared his DNA, but was a complete stranger. A little girl who had lost the only parent she had ever known. Inside, the building smelled like industrial disinfectant and old coffee. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, institutional glow. Marcus approached the reception desk, where a tired-looking woman in her 50s looked up from a stack of paperwork. "I'm Marcus Chen," he said. "I have an appointment with Mrs. Rodriguez about Lily Chen." The woman's expression shifted slightly as she took in his expensive suit and the way he carried himself. "Just a moment." 5 minutes later, a woman in her early 40s approached, her graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Carmen Rodriguez had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, but her expression was cautious. "Mr. Chen, I'm Carmen Rodriguez, Lily's caseworker. Thank you for coming." "Thank you for arranging this." She led him down a hallway lined with motivational posters and children's artwork. "I want to prepare you for what you're about to see," Carmen said as they walked. "Lily has been through significant trauma, the loss of her mother, the upheaval of placement. It's been very difficult for her." They stopped outside a door marked Family Meeting Room. Through the small window, Marcus could see a little girl sitting at a child-sized table, coloring with intense concentration. She was smaller than he had expected, her dark hair hanging in gentle waves around her face. "She's very quiet," Carmen continued. "She was extremely close to her mother. Sarah homeschooled her the last year when she became too ill to work, so Lily hasn't had much interaction with other children. She's brilliant, reading at a third-grade level according to the assessments, but emotionally, she's struggling." Marcus watched as Lily carefully selected a blue crayon from the box in front of her. Her movements were precise, deliberate, as if she were putting all her focus into this one small task to avoid thinking about larger things. "What has she been told about me?" "Only that her mother had asked for you to be contacted if anything happened to her. We told her that you were someone special to her mother, someone who cared about her, but we haven't used the word father. We wanted to see how this first meeting went." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. May I go in?" Carmen studied his face for a moment. "Mr. Chen, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen a lot of different kinds of families come together and fall apart. What I'm about to ask you is very important." "I'm listening." "If you walk through that door, you're not just meeting a child. You're potentially becoming the most important person in her life. She's already lost everyone she's ever depended on. If you're not prepared to commit fully, not just financially, but emotionally, then it would be kinder to walk away now." Marcus looked through the window again. As if sensing his attention, Lily looked up from her coloring. For a moment, their eyes met through the glass. Her expression was neither welcoming nor hostile, just watchful, as if she had learned not to expect too much from new adults who appeared in her life. "I want to try," Marcus said. "I want to be what she needs." Carmen nodded and opened the door. Lily, there's someone here I'd like you to meet. The little girl set down her crayon and looked up expectantly. Up close, the resemblance was unmistakable. She had Marcus's dark eyes and the same stubborn set to her chin he recognized from his own childhood photos. Hi, Lily, Marcus said, kneeling down so he was at her eye level. My name is Marcus. I knew your mommy. Lily studied him with the serious expression of a child who had been forced to grow up too quickly. Did you come to take me somewhere? She asked in a voice barely above a whisper. The question broke something inside Marcus's chest. This little girl had learned that new adults meant new places, new uncertainty. I came to meet you, he said gently, and to see if maybe we could spend some time together. Would you like that? Lily looked at Carmen, who nodded encouragingly, then back at Marcus. Are you going to ask me lots of questions? Only if you want to answer them. We could just sit here if you'd prefer. I see you're drawing something beautiful. For the first time, Lily's expression softened slightly. She turned her paper around to show him. It was a picture of a house with a garden, drawn with careful attention to detail. In the yard, two stick figures stood holding hands. That's me and Mommy, Lily explained. Before she got sick, we had a little garden where we grew tomatoes and flowers. Marcus felt tears threatening. It's a beautiful picture. You're a very good artist. Mommy said I got that from my daddy, Lily said matter-of-factly. She said he was smart and good at making things, but she never told me his name. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This child had been wondering about him, had been told she had inherited something from him, but had never known who he was. Lily, he said carefully, what if I told you that I'm your daddy? She stared at him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face. Really? Really? To his surprise, she didn't seem shocked or emotional. Instead, she tilted her head and asked, Why didn't you come before? It was the most devastating question she could have asked, and the most honest. Marcus felt Carmen watching him, felt the weight of this moment and all the moments that would follow. Because I didn't know about you, he said. Your mommy never told me, but when I found out, I came as fast as I could. Lily nodded slowly, as if this explanation made sense in her 5-year-old logic. Are you going to take care of me now? The simple question contained everything: hope, fear, the desperate need for security that every child deserved. I would like to, Marcus said, if you would like that too, but we would need to get to know each other first. We're strangers right now, and that's okay. We can take our time. Where would I live? Marcus realized he had no answer. His penthouse apartment was a bachelor pad filled with expensive furniture and sharp edges. His life was 18-hour workdays and business dinners. He traveled constantly, often with only a few hours' notice. I don't know yet, he admitted, but we'll figure it out together. For the first time, Lily smiled, a small, tentative expression that transformed her serious little face. Okay. They spent the next hour coloring together. Lily showed him how to draw better flowers, and Marcus told her simple stories about his own childhood, carefully avoiding mention of his wealth or business empire. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged him, a quick, shy embrace that left him breathless with the magnitude of what he had just committed to. Will you come back? She asked. Tomorrow, Marcus promised, and every day after that until we figure out how to be a family. As he drove back toward Silicon Valley, Marcus made a series of phone calls that would change his life forever. He called his board of directors and announced he was taking an immediate leave of absence. He called his real estate agent and asked her to find him a family-friendly home near good schools. He called his lawyer and began the process of filing for custody. And he called Rebecca, though it went straight to voicemail. Her message, when it came an hour later, was brief. I'm returning your ring and moving out of the penthouse. I hope you find what you're looking for." Marcus deleted the message and called Carmen Rodriguez instead. "What do I need to know about raising a 5-year-old?" he asked. Carmen's laugh was warm and knowing. "Everything, Mr. Chen, but the good news is you'll learn as you go. That's what all parents do." 2 weeks later, Marcus Chen officially became a single father. He rented a small house in Palo Alto with a backyard where Lily could plant a garden, enrolled her in a neighborhood school, and began the complex process of learning to be present in someone else's life. It was harder than building a billion-dollar company. It was more rewarding than anything he had ever accomplished. But what Marcus didn't know was that his decision to choose Lily over his old life had set other forces in motion. Forces that would soon threaten to tear apart the fragile new family they were building and test just how far a man would go to protect the person he loved most. The first sign of trouble came 6 months later on a Tuesday evening in September. Marcus had just finished helping Lily with her homework when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "She doesn't belong in your world. Some mistakes should stay buried." Marcus stared at the message, ice forming in his stomach. He looked across their small kitchen to where Lily was carefully arranging her colored pencils in order of rainbow, humming softly to herself. In the past 6 months, she had blossomed from a quiet, wary child into a happy little girl who laughed easily and asked 1,000 questions a day. She called him Daddy now, had friends at school, and had planted the tomatoes and flowers she had dreamed of in their small backyard. The idea that anyone would see her as a mistake filled him with protective rage. Marcus deleted the text and tried to put it out of his mind. But over the following weeks, more messages arrived. Photos of Lily walking to school, images of Marcus picking her up from her after-school art class, screenshots of news articles about his mysterious absence from the tech world, with speculation about whether Chen Technologies was in trouble. Someone was watching them. Someone who knew who Marcus really was and wanted him gone. It was then that Marcus made the decision that would define the next chapter of their lives. If someone was threatening his daughter, he needed to disappear, not abandon her, but protect her by vanishing from the world that had made him a target. Marcus Chen, billionaire tech mogul, would cease to exist. In his place would be Marcus Kim, a widowed single father working whatever jobs he could find to support his daughter. The transformation took 3 months of careful planning. Marcus liquidated enough assets to create a modest trust fund for Lily's education and future, hiding the money in accounts that couldn't be traced back to Chen Technologies. He resigned from his own board, selling his shares to a consortium of investors who promised to maintain his privacy. He traded his Armani suits for second-hand clothes, his Tesla for a used Honda, his penthouse for a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens, and he took a job as a night janitor with a commercial cleaning company, working while Lily slept so he could be home when she needed him. It was the most difficult thing Marcus had ever done, watching his daughter adapt to their reduced circumstances without understanding why. Lily never complained about their smaller apartment or the fact that they shopped at thrift stores now. But sometimes Marcus caught her looking confused when he couldn't buy her something she wanted. "Daddy," she asked one evening as they walked home from the grocery store, "why don't we live in our old house anymore?" "Sometimes people need to make changes to keep the people they love safe," Marcus had explained, kneeling down to her level on the sidewalk. "Do you feel safe with me?" "Yes," Lily said immediately. "Then I'm doing my job right." For 18 months, the plan worked perfectly. Marcus Chen disappeared from the business world so completely that rumors began circulating about his death or disappearance. Meanwhile, Marcus Kim lived quietly in Queens, raising his daughter and cleaning office buildings from midnight to dawn, until the envelope arrived. Marcus stood in his small kitchen, looking at the cashier's check for $10 million that someone believed would make him disappear. The amount was staggering to most people, enough to live comfortably for several lifetimes. But to a man worth $400 million, it was almost insulting. What disturbed Marcus more than the money was what the offer represented. Someone had found them. Someone knew exactly who he was and wanted him gone badly enough to pay an enormous sum for his disappearance. The question was, who and why now? Marcus folded the check and slipped it into his wallet. Tomorrow, after Lily left for school, he would begin investigating who had sent it. But tonight, he would do what he did every night: kiss his daughter goodnight, check that the deadbolt was locked, and remind himself that every sacrifice had been worth it. Because somewhere in the gleaming towers of Silicon Valley, Marcus Chen had been a billionaire. But here in their small apartment in Queens, Marcus Kim was something infinitely more valuable. He was a father. The next morning, after Marcus walked Lily to school and watched her skip through the playground gates with her bright pink backpack bouncing, he took the subway into Manhattan. The cleaning company's office was in a converted warehouse in Long Island City, sandwiched between an auto repair shop and a discount furniture store. It was exactly the kind of place the old Marcus would never have noticed. But the new Marcus had spent 18 months learning to see the invisible world around him. The night shift workers who kept the city running, the single mothers working 3 jobs, the immigrant families building better lives, $1 at a time. It was a world Rebecca would have dismissed as irrelevant, but Marcus had found it more real than anything in his previous life. Inside the office, Rosa Martinez looked up from her desk with a warm smile. At 55, Rosa was the heart and soul of Metro Cleaning Services, a small company that had contracts with several mid-level office buildings in Manhattan. She had hired Marcus without asking too many questions about his background, and in return, he had become one of her most reliable employees. "Marcus," she called out, "you're early today. Don't tell me you're picking up an extra shift." "Actually, I need to ask you about something unusual," Marcus said, pulling out the check. "I received this last night, along with a note telling me to disappear and never contact someone named Emma again." Rosa's expression immediately shifted to concern as she examined the check. $10 million, Marcus, who would send you this kind of money? That's what I'm trying to figure out. The note mentioned someone named Emma, but I don't know anyone by that name. Emma? Rosa frowned thoughtfully. Wait, Emma. Tall, blonde woman, very put together, works at Sterling and Associates? Marcus felt something click into place. The law firm? On the 38th floor? That's the one. You've been cleaning their offices for 6 months now. She's one of the junior partners, I think. Works late most nights. Suddenly, Marcus could picture her clearly. Emma Walsh. He had seen her name on the office directory. She was usually the only person still working when he arrived at Sterling and Associates at midnight. Professional but friendly, she had always greeted him with a genuine smile and asked about his daughter when she saw Lily's drawings taped to his supply cart. She's been very kind, Marcus said slowly, but I've never had more than casual conversation with her. Why would someone want me to stay away from her? Maybe someone doesn't like the idea of her talking to the cleaning staff, Rosa suggested, but her tone indicated she didn't believe it herself. Marcus thanked Rosa and left, his mind racing as he rode the subway back to Queens. Emma Walsh was an associate at one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. What possible threat could his casual conversations with her pose to anyone? That evening, Marcus arrived at Sterling and Associates at his usual time, but instead of beginning his cleaning routine, he lingered outside Emma's office. Through the glass walls, he could see her working late as always, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression focused as she reviewed documents. Marcus knocked softly on the open door. "Ms. Walsh? I'm sorry to bother you." Emma looked up, her face brightening when she saw him. "Marcus, please come in. How's Lily? Did her science fair project go well?" Her genuine interest in his daughter's life only made the mystery deeper. "She got second place with her volcano, thank you for asking." "That's wonderful. I'd love to see pictures if you have them." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her the photos of Lily beaming next to her papier-mâché volcano. As Emma admired the pictures, Marcus studied her face, looking for any clue about why someone would pay $10 million to keep him away from her. "Ms. Walsh," he said carefully, "has anyone ever warned you about talking to the cleaning staff? Or to me, specifically?" Emma's expression immediately changed, wariness replacing warmth. "Why do you ask?" "Because someone sent me a very large sum of money and told me to stay away from you." The color drained from Emma's face. She stood up quickly, walking to her office door and closing it. "Marcus, I think we need to talk." Emma closed her office door with a soft click that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she turned to face Marcus, and for the first time since he had known her, the confident attorney looked genuinely afraid. "Marcus," she said quietly, "before we go any further, I need to ask you something important. Who are you really?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus had spent 18 months perfecting his cover as Marcus Kim, the struggling single father. He had learned to speak differently, dress differently, carry himself differently. But now, looking into Emma's intelligent green eyes, he realized she had seen through the carefully constructed facade. "What do you mean?" he asked, though he already knew his response sounded hollow. Emma walked to her desk and pulled out a file folder. "3 months ago, I started noticing things. The way you speak, your vocabulary, your syntax. It's not consistent with someone who's worked manual labor his whole life. Your hands are soft despite 6 months of cleaning work. And the way you help Lily with her homework, you're teaching her concepts that are years ahead of her grade level." Marcus felt his carefully built walls crumbling. "Emma, then there's this," she continued, opening the folder to reveal a printed photograph. It showed Marcus from his old life, standing behind a podium at a tech conference, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. The caption read, "Tech mogul Marcus Chen announces revolutionary AI breakthrough." Marcus stared at the photo, seeing himself as he used to be, confident, powerful, and completely disconnected from the things that mattered most. "Where did you get this?" "I'm a lawyer, Marcus. Research is what I do." Emma's voice was gentle but firm. "Marcus Chen, founder and former CEO of Chen Technologies. Net worth estimated at $400 million before your mysterious disappearance 18 months ago. The tech world is still speculating about what happened to you." Marcus sank into the chair across from her desk. "How long have you known?" "I've suspected for weeks, but I wasn't certain until tonight. When you mentioned someone offering you money to stay away from me, it confirmed what I was afraid of." "Which is?" Emma sat down across from him, her professional composure giving way to something more vulnerable. "Marcus, I think someone in my firm has figured out who you are, and I think they want you gone because of what I've been working on." She pulled out another file, this one much thicker. "For the past year, I've been building a class action lawsuit against Meridian Industries. They're a massive real estate development company that's been systematically displacing low-income families in Queens and Brooklyn, using predatory practices and legal loopholes to force people out of their homes." Marcus frowned. "I don't understand the connection." "Meridian Industries is owned by Blackstone Capital Group, and Blackstone's largest individual investor is..." She slid another document across the desk. Marcus read the name and felt ice form in his stomach. Rebecca Hastings. Your former fiancée. She's not just invested in Blackstone. According to the financial documents I've uncovered, she's essentially running their real estate division. The displacement project in Queens? It's her initiative. The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. She knows I'm living in Queens. More than that, Emma said grimly. 3 months ago, she purchased the building you and Lily live in through a shell corporation. You've been paying rent to your ex-fiancée without knowing it. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. That's impossible. I researched the ownership before we moved in. Shell companies within shell companies. It's perfectly legal, just well hidden. But here's the thing that really concerns me. Your building is scheduled for demolition in 6 months. All the tenants have been served eviction notices except for a few units. Yours is one of them. She's been watching us, Marcus said, the full scope of Rebecca's plan becoming clear. She knows exactly where we live, where Lily goes to school, our daily routines. It gets worse. Emma opened another section of the file. Meridian has been systematically targeting single parents in their displacement campaigns. They file harassment complaints, report code violations, anything to make life difficult enough that people choose to leave rather than fight. Marcus thought about the small problems that had been plaguing their building recently. Broken mailboxes, inconsistent heat, water pressure issues. Things he had attributed to normal wear and tear in an older building. She's been making our lives miserable incrementally, he said, hoping we'd move on our own. But you haven't, and now she's escalating. Emma leaned forward, her expression intense. Marcus, I think she sent that check because my lawsuit is getting close to exposing everything. If you disappear, if she can prove you abandoned Lily, it would discredit my case by removing one of my key witnesses. Key witnesses? You and Lily represent everything Meridian claims doesn't exist. A loving father working multiple jobs to provide for his daughter, living in affordable housing that's actually safe and clean. Your story contradicts their narrative that they're improving neighborhoods by removing undesirable elements. Marcus stood up and began pacing the small office, his mind racing. She doesn't just want me gone. She wants me to abandon Lily. Think about it, Emma said quietly. If Marcus Kim disappears and leaves his daughter behind, it reinforces every stereotype they're using to justify the displacements. Deadbeat dads, unstable households, children better off in the system than with their families. The cruelty of it took Marcus's breath away. Rebecca knew how much Lily meant to him, knew that he had given up everything to be her father, and she was counting on that love being strong enough that he would run rather than put his daughter at risk. But she's miscalculated something, Marcus said, stopping his pacing to look at Emma. I'm not just Marcus Kim, struggling single father. I'm also Marcus Chen, and I have resources she doesn't know I can access. Marcus, Emma said carefully, what are you thinking? Before he could answer, Emma's office phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, and her face went pale. It's my senior partner at midnight. She looked at Marcus apologetically. I have to take this. Emma Walsh speaking. Marcus could hear the man's voice through the phone, cold and authoritative. Emma, I need you in my office immediately. Sir, it's very late. Could this wait until... Now, Emma. The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone, then at Marcus. He knows you're here. How is that possible? The building has security cameras, key card access logs. Emma gathered the files quickly, stuffing them into her briefcase. Marcus, you need to leave. Use the service elevator. Go out through the loading dock. What about you? I'll handle this, But promise me, don't do anything rash. Don't disappear. Don't take that money. Give me time to figure out our next move." Marcus hesitated at the door. "Emma, why are you helping me? You barely know me." She looked up from her briefcase, and for a moment, her professional mask slipped entirely. "Because in the 6 months I've watched you with Lily, I've seen something I didn't think existed anymore. A parent who puts their child first, no matter what it costs them. And because—" she hesitated. "Because what?" "Because I know what it's like to grow up without that. My father was a successful businessman who thought money could replace presence. I spent my childhood in boarding schools and summer camps while he built his empire. When he died, I inherited everything and understood nothing about what actually mattered." The pain in her voice was raw and real. Marcus understood exactly what she meant. "I won't disappear," he promised, "but I also won't let Rebecca hurt Lily." 20 minutes later, Marcus emerged from the loading dock of the Sterling and Associates building to find a Blacktown car waiting in the alley. The passenger window rolled down, revealing Rebecca's perfectly composed face. "Hello, Marcus." He had not seen her in 18 months, but she looked exactly the same, immaculately styled, coldly beautiful, and radiating the kind of confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged in any room you entered. "Rebecca, get in. We need to talk." "I don't think so." "It wasn't a request." She gestured to the driver, and Marcus noticed for the first time that there was a second man in the front seat, both hands visible and both considerably larger than necessary for simple transportation. Marcus weighed his options. He could run, but that would only delay the inevitable. Better to find out exactly what Rebecca wanted. He got into the car. The interior was exactly what he would have expected. Leather seats, climate control, and a privacy partition between the front and back seats. Rebecca wore a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. "You look—" She paused, taking in his work clothes and calloused hands. "Different. 18 months of real work will do that." "Real work." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Is that what you call abandoning everything you built to play house with a child you barely knew?" "That child is my daughter." "That child," Rebecca said, her voice taking on the tone she used during hostile negotiations, "is a complication you could have handled more elegantly. A trust fund, boarding school, supervised visits twice a year. Instead, you chose to throw away $400 million to become a janitor." "I chose to be a father." "And how's that working out for you?" She pulled out a tablet, swiping through a series of photographs. Lily crying on her first day at public school. You working until dawn and falling asleep during her school play. Your daughter asking the neighbor why other kids' dads come to pick them up during the day. Each image was a knife twist. Marcus realized Rebecca had been watching them far longer than he had imagined. "Every parent makes sacrifices," he said, though the photos stung. "Some sacrifices are worthwhile, others are just self-indulgent guilt." Rebecca put the tablet away. "Marcus, I'm going to make you an offer, not out of generosity, but because it serves my purposes." "I already saw your offer. $10 million. That was just the opening bid. Here's the real proposal. $15 million deposited in an account of your choosing. In exchange, you sign over all parental rights to Lily and disappear permanently." Marcus stared at her. "You're insane if you think I would ever—" "Before you refuse, consider what I'm offering her." Rebecca's voice became persuasive, the tone she used when closing major deals. "Private schools, the best tutors, summer programs in Europe, college at Harvard or Princeton, fully paid. A trust fund that will ensure she never wants for anything." "What about love?" What about having a parent who actually shows up? She'll have caregivers, nannies, tutors, mentors, people who are trained to provide what children need. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Rebecca leaned forward. Marcus, be honest. How many of Lily's school events have you missed because you were working? How many times has she gone to bed alone because you had to take extra shifts? How often does she eat dinner in front of the television because you're too exhausted to cook? The questions hit their mark because they contained threads of truth. Marcus did work nights, which meant he was often exhausted during the day. There had been school events he couldn't attend because he couldn't leave work. There were nights when Lily fell asleep waiting for him to come home. Every parent struggles with balance, he said, but most parents don't have a choice. You do. You could give her everything, education, opportunities, connections that will open doors for the rest of her life. All you have to do is admit that loving her means letting her go. For a moment, Marcus found himself actually considering it. Lily deserved every opportunity in the world. She was brilliant, creative, and capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. Would his pride really be worth limiting her potential? Then he remembered something that had happened just 3 days earlier. Lily had woken up from a nightmare, crying and calling for him. Marcus had climbed into her small bed, holding her until she fell back asleep. Before drifting off, she had whispered, "Daddy, I'm glad you're here. I love you more than everything." Not more than anything. More than everything. She doesn't want opportunities and connections, Marcus said firmly. She wants her father. Rebecca's expression hardened. Then you're forcing me to do this the difficult way. Which is, Child Services will receive an anonymous report tomorrow morning. Marcus Kim, suspected of being an unstable parent due to work schedule disruptions, inadequate supervision, and possible substance abuse. Substance abuse, Rebecca, that's completely fabricated, yes, but it will trigger an investigation that will take weeks to resolve, during which time Lily will be placed in temporary foster care while social services verifies your fitness as a parent. Marcus felt sick. You can't do that. I can do anything I want, Marcus. I have unlimited resources, political connections, and absolutely no scruples about what it takes to win. You have a high school education, as far as anyone knows, and a job cleaning toilets. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Rebecca was threatening to destroy Lily's sense of security and safety just to prove a point. But, Rebecca continued, it doesn't have to come to that. Take the money. Disappear tonight. Lily will cry for a few weeks, then move on to a better life than you could ever provide. Marcus looked out the window of the town car, watching the city lights blur past. Somewhere out there in their small Queens apartment, Lily was sleeping peacefully, trusting that her father would always come home to her. I need time to think, he said finally. You have until tomorrow at noon. After that, the complaint gets filed. The car stopped outside his apartment building. As Marcus got out, Rebecca rolled down the window one last time. Marcus, she called, and for just a moment, her voice carried something that might have been genuine emotion. I really did love you once. This doesn't have to destroy us both. You never loved me, Marcus replied. You loved the idea of me, the successful, powerful version that fit into your plans. The moment I chose something that mattered more than money, you stopped seeing me as a person. Rebecca's expression closed off. Noon tomorrow, Marcus. Don't make me destroy that little girl's life just to prove a point. The car drove away, leaving Marcus standing alone on the sidewalk outside his building. Above him, the windows of their apartment were dark. Lily was sleeping safely in her bed, surrounded by the drawings she had made that week and the stuffed elephant she still carried everywhere. Marcus climbed the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment, his mind racing through possibilities. He could fight Rebecca in court, but that would mean exposing his true identity. which would bring other complications. He could run with Lily, but that would mean uprooting her again just as she had found stability. Or he could call Emma and trust that together they could find a third option. Marcus unlocked the apartment door as quietly as possible and looked in on Lily. She was curled up under her favorite blanket, one small hand clutching her stuffed elephant. On her nightstand was a drawing she had made that afternoon, a picture of the two of them planting flowers in their imaginary garden. At the bottom, in her careful 5-year-old handwriting, she had written, "Me and Daddy growing beautiful things." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. Rebecca was wrong about so many things, but she was right about one. He would do anything to protect his daughter, even if it meant making the hardest choice of his life. But as he stood there watching Lily sleep, Marcus realized Rebecca had made a crucial miscalculation. She thought she was still dealing with the old Marcus, the man who had built his identity around success and wealth. She didn't understand that losing everything had taught him what truly mattered. Money was just a tool. Power was just an illusion. But love, the kind of love that woke you up at 2 a.m. to comfort a crying child, the kind that made you choose presence over profit, that was real. And Marcus Chen, former billionaire turned night janitor, was about to show Rebecca Hastings exactly how dangerous a man became when someone threatened the thing he loved most. The next morning, Marcus called in sick to work for the first time in 18 months. After dropping Lily off at school, he took the subway back into Manhattan, but this time he didn't go to Sterling and Associates. Instead, he went to a small office building in the financial district that housed the law firm of Chen and Associates. The receptionist was a young man Marcus didn't recognize, which wasn't surprising. It had been nearly 2 years since he had any contact with his family's legal representation. "I'd like to see David Chen," Marcus said. "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him Marcus is here." 5 minutes later, a familiar figure emerged from the elevator. David Chen was Marcus's older brother, a brilliant attorney who had built the family firm, while Marcus was conquering the tech world. At 42, David had the same dark eyes and stubborn chin as Marcus. But where Marcus had learned to project technological innovation, David radiated legal precision. "Marcus!" David's voice was a mixture of shock and concern. "My God, where have you been? We've been—" He stopped, taking in Marcus's appearance. "What happened to you?" "It's a long story. Can we talk privately?" David led him to his corner office, closing the door behind them. "Marcus, the whole family has been worried sick. You disappeared without a trace. Your company said you took a leave of absence, but then months went by with no contact. We hired investigators." "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I needed to disappear for a while, but right now I need your help." Over the next hour, Marcus explained everything: finding Lily, choosing fatherhood over his business empire, the threats from Rebecca, and the discovery of Emma's lawsuit. David listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each revelation. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," David said when Marcus finished. "You have a 5-year-old daughter you've been raising in secret for 18 months. Your former fiancé has been orchestrating a harassment campaign designed to force you to abandon that daughter. And a lawyer you barely know has been building a case that could expose the whole operation." "That's the summary, yes." David leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "Marcus, why didn't you come to me 18 months ago? I could have helped you navigate the custody process legally, protected your assets, managed the transition properly." "Because I didn't want to navigate it legally. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to be just a father, not a billionaire who happened to have a child." "And how's that working out for you?" Marcus thought about the previous evening, about Lily's drawing and her whispered, "I love you more than everything." Better than anything I've ever accomplished, he said honestly. David smiled for the first time since Marcus had walked into his office. Then we're going to protect it. All of it, your daughter, your new life, and your right to choose how you want to live it. David, I need you to understand something. I'm not asking you to help me return to my old life. I like being Marcus Kim. I like working with my hands, living simply, being present for Lily. I just need Rebecca to leave us alone. Understood, but Marcus, you're going to have to trust me on the strategy, because what I'm thinking involves using every resource at our disposal, including the $400 million you've been pretending you don't have. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Marcus spent the rest of the morning in David's office, working on a strategy that would neutralize Rebecca's threats, while protecting Lily from the chaos of legal warfare. By lunchtime, they had the framework of a plan that was audacious, risky, and exactly the kind of maneuver that had made Marcus Chen a legend in the business world. But first, Marcus had one more stop to make. Emma was waiting in her office when Marcus arrived, looking as if she hadn't slept all night. Her usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and there were dark circles under her green eyes. "Marcus, thank God," she said when she saw him. "After last night, I was afraid Rebecca had—" "She tried," Marcus said, closing the office door behind him. "Emma, I need to ask you something important. Are you willing to trust me completely, even if what I'm about to propose sounds insane?" Emma studied his face, seeing something different in his expression, a confidence and authority that hadn't been there before. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you willing to bet your career on the possibility that sometimes the best way to fight power is with more power?" Before Emma could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. But this time, the message wasn't a threat. It was coordinates and a time. Marcus showed Emma the screen. "She wants to meet in 1 hour, Central Park, near the reservoir." "That's very public for someone who's been operating in shadows," Emma observed. "Rebecca's escalating because she's running out of time. My guess is her investors are getting nervous about the lawsuit, and she needs this resolved quickly." Emma gathered her files, then stopped and looked at Marcus directly. "Before we go any further, I need to know, what aren't you telling me? Last night you said you had resources Rebecca doesn't know about. What kind of resources?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "The kind that could make Rebecca Hastings's worst nightmare come true. But Emma, once I show you what I really am, there's no going back. Are you prepared for that?" Emma thought about it for a long moment. "Marcus, in 6 months of watching you with Lily, I've seen you be more of a father than my own dad ever was in 18 years. Whatever else you are, whoever you used to be, that's real. That's what matters. Then let's go remind Rebecca Hastings that she's not the only one who knows how to play the game." As they left the office building together, Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call he hadn't made in 18 months. "David, it's time. Execute the plan." Across the city, in boardrooms and legal offices, phones began ringing. Contracts that had been sitting dormant for months suddenly activated. Investments that had been quietly gathering interest began to move. And Rebecca Hastings, who thought she was about to claim victory over a broken man, was about to discover that Marcus Chen had never really disappeared. He had simply been waiting for the right moment to remind everyone exactly who he was. The war for Lily's future was about to begin, and it would be fought with weapons Rebecca had forgotten Marcus possessed. Unlimited resources, strategic brilliance, and the kind of love that made a man willing to destroy his old life to protect his new one. But the most dangerous weapon of all was the one Rebecca had never understood. a father's promise to his daughter that he would never, ever let her down again. Central Park at 2 in the afternoon was alive with autumn energy. Joggers traced the winding paths, families spread picnic blankets on the grass, and the reservoir reflected the golden October light like scattered coins. It was the kind of beautiful day that made Manhattan feel almost peaceful, which made it a perfect setting for what Rebecca had planned as Marcus's final humiliation. She stood near the reservoir wearing an ivory wool coat that probably cost more than most people's rent, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the breeze. To any casual observer, she looked like exactly what she was, a successful businesswoman taking a brief break from conquering the world. Marcus and Emma approached from the south path, walking side by side but not touching. Marcus had changed from his work clothes into a simple black suit he hadn't worn in 18 months. It fit him differently now. His shoulders were broader from physical labor, his hands were calloused, and his face carried lines of exhaustion and joy that hadn't been there in his previous life. "You came," Rebecca said as they reached her. Her tone was carefully neutral, but Marcus caught the flash of surprise in her eyes when she saw Emma. "I wasn't expecting company." "Emma Walsh," Emma introduced herself, extending her hand with professional politeness. "I believe you know my work." Rebecca's composure flickered for just a moment. Ah, the lawyer building the quixotic little lawsuit against Meridian Industries, how delightfully naive. "Some people call it naive," Emma replied evenly. "Others call it justice." "Justice." Rebecca smiled with the kind of cold amusement she reserved for idealistic opponents. "Ms. Walsh, let me save you some time and effort. Your lawsuit will never see the inside of a courtroom. My legal team has already identified 17 procedural flaws in your filing, and that's just from the preliminary review." "Your confidence is noted," Emma said, "though I suspect you'll find my research more thorough than you anticipate." Marcus watched the exchange with growing understanding. This meeting wasn't just about him and Lily. It was about Rebecca's entire displacement operation being threatened by Emma's investigation. No wonder she was desperate to remove him from the equation. "Marcus," Rebecca said, turning her attention back to him, "I assume you've had time to consider my offer." "I have." "And?" Marcus pulled the cashier's check from his wallet, the $10 million amount visible in the afternoon sunlight. For a moment, Rebecca's expression brightened with what might have been relief. Then Marcus tore the check in half. The pieces fluttered to the ground like expensive confetti. Rebecca stared at the torn paper, her carefully controlled mask slipping to reveal something sharp and dangerous beneath. "That was a mistake," she said quietly. "Was it?" Marcus asked. "Rebecca, do you remember the first time we met?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "What does that have to do with anything?" "You were giving a presentation about sustainable development at the Tech Leaders Summit. You talked about using innovation to create positive change in the world. You were passionate, brilliant, and completely committed to making a difference." Rebecca's expression hardened. "That was before I learned how the world actually works." "No, that was before you decided that winning was more important than being right." Marcus stepped closer, and for the first time since Emma had known him, she could see the man who had built a tech empire. His voice carried quiet authority, the kind that came from being used to having entire boardrooms hang on his words. What happened to the woman who wanted to change the world? "She grew up," Rebecca snapped. "She learned that idealism doesn't pay for private jets or Malibu estates. She discovered that the only thing that matters is having enough power to make the choices instead of being forced to accept other people's choices." "Is that really what you believe?" "It's what I know." Rebecca pulled out her phone. Since you've chosen to be stubborn, let me show you exactly how much power I have." She dialed a number, holding the phone so Marcus and Emma could hear. "Detective Morrison, this is Rebecca Hastings. I'd like to file that report we discussed." "Yes, regarding the child welfare concern. The name is Marcus Kim, Queens address. Yes, I have documented evidence of neglect and possible substance abuse." Marcus felt ice form in his chest as he listened to Rebecca systematically dismantling his life with clinical precision. She was actually doing it, calling child services, triggering an investigation that would tear Lily away from him. "The report will be filed within the hour," Rebecca said, ending the call. "Social services will visit your apartment this evening. Lily will be placed in protective custody while they verify your fitness as a parent, a process that typically takes several weeks." "You're destroying an innocent child's life to prove a point," Emma said, her professional composure finally cracking. "I'm removing an obstacle," Rebecca replied coldly. "Marcus chose to make this difficult. The consequences are his responsibility." Marcus stared at the woman he had once planned to marry, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The beautiful, ambitious woman who had shared his bed and his dreams had become someone capable of traumatizing a 5-year-old girl just to win a business dispute. "You're right about one thing," Marcus said quietly. "I did make this difficult, but not in the way you think." He pulled out his phone and made a call of his own. "David, it's time." Across the city, in the offices of Sterling and Associates, a senior partner named William Sterling was having the worst day of his legal career. His secretary had just informed him that Chen and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in New York, was requesting an emergency meeting regarding irregularities in the Meridian Industries matter. At Blackstone Capital Group, Rebecca's primary investors were receiving calls from forensic accountants who had some very interesting questions about fund allocation and real estate acquisition practices. And at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, a prosecutor named Sarah Chen, David's law school classmate, was reviewing a meticulously documented complaint alleging systematic housing fraud, tenant harassment, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. But Rebecca didn't know any of that yet. "Marcus," she said, her voice taking on a patronizing tone, "making phone calls won't change anything. In 3 hours, Lily will be in foster care, and you'll be facing a child welfare investigation that could result in permanent loss of custody." "You think I'm still the broken man who walked away from his empire 18 months ago," Marcus said. "You think losing my company, my wealth, my old life made me weak." "Didn't it?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time since Emma had known him, she saw the billionaire tech mogul who had built an empire from nothing. "No, Rebecca, it made me dangerous." Rebecca's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, frowning slightly. "William, I'm in a meeting." Emma could hear the senior partner's voice through the phone, tight with panic. "Rebecca, we need to talk immediately. Chen and Associates has filed a motion to freeze all Meridian Industries assets pending a fraud investigation." The color drained from Rebecca's face. "That's impossible. They don't have standing to—" "They're representing Marcus Chen." Rebecca's eyes snapped to Marcus, understanding dawning with sickening clarity. "Marcus Chen is supposed to be missing." "He was never missing," Marcus said calmly. "He was just taking a sabbatical to learn how to be a father." Rebecca's phone rang again. This time it was her primary investor at Blackstone Capital. The conversation was brief and devastating. The fund was freezing all real estate investments pending an audit. The displacement project was suspended immediately. And Rebecca's authority over the real estate division was revoked effective immediately. "How?" Rebecca whispered, staring at Marcus as if he were a ghost. Did you really think I would give up $400 million without any way to get it back? Marcus asked. Every asset I liquidated was held in trust. Every investment I made was reversible. I've been sleeping on the financial equivalent of a nuclear weapon for 18 months, waiting for someone to give me a reason to use it. Emma watched this transformation with fascination. The gentle night janitor she had known was revealing himself to be a master strategist who had been playing chess while everyone else thought they were playing checkers. But more importantly, Marcus continued, you made one crucial mistake, Rebecca. You threatened my daughter, and that changed this from a business dispute to a war. Rebecca's phone rang a third time. Detective Morrison, the man she had called 20 minutes earlier. Ms. Hastings, I'm afraid there's been a development in the Marcus Kim matter. It appears Mr. Kim is actually Marcus Chen, the tech billionaire. Yes, we're aware of his resources. No, ma'am, we will not be pursuing the child welfare investigation without significantly more evidence. Rebecca ended the call, her hands shaking slightly. You can't do this. I have contracts, investors, legal protections. You had those things when you were following the law, Emma interjected. But systematic tenant harassment, predatory real estate practices, and conspiracy to defraud low-income families, that's a different category entirely. You have no proof of any illegal activity. Emma smiled and pulled out a thick folder. Actually, I have quite a lot of proof. Financial records, internal communications, documented harassment campaigns. It turns out that when you have unlimited resources and 18 months to investigate, you can uncover quite a bit. Marcus stepped closer to Rebecca, his voice gentle but implacable. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw from the Meridian Industries project. You're going to resign from Blackstone Capital. And you're going to leave me, Lily, and Emma alone forever. And if I refuse, then the evidence Emma has collected goes to the district attorney, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the country. Your displacement scheme becomes a national scandal about wealthy elites preying on vulnerable families. Your career is over, your reputation is destroyed, and you spend the next decade fighting federal charges. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, staring out over the reservoir as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. You were supposed to disappear, she said finally. You walked away from everything. You became nobody. I became a father, Marcus corrected. And that's not nobody, Rebecca. That's everything. You threw away an empire for one little girl. I traded an empire for a family. Best deal I ever made. Rebecca turned to face him one last time, and for just a moment Emma saw a flash of the woman Marcus had once fallen in love with, brilliant, driven, but also lost and desperately lonely. I could have loved her too, Rebecca said quietly, if you had let me try. Marcus felt a stab of sadness for the relationship that might have been. You never wanted to try, Rebecca. You wanted to manage the problem. There's a difference. And now? Now you move on. Find something that actually makes you happy instead of just successful, and leave my family alone. Rebecca nodded slowly, then walked away without another word. They watched her disappear into the crowd of afternoon park visitors, just another person in an expensive coat whose plans hadn't worked out the way she'd hoped. Is it really over? Emma asked after Rebecca was gone. The legal part is, Marcus replied. My brother David is very thorough, and Rebecca isn't stupid enough to keep fighting a war she can't win. But the personal part, he shrugged, that might take longer to heal. They walked slowly back through the park, neither of them in a hurry to return to the real world. The afternoon light was beginning to fade, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Marcus, Emma said as they reached the park entrance, what happens now? Do you go back to being a tech billionaire? Return to your old life? Marcus considered the question seriously. I don't know. For 18 months, I've been Marcus Kim, night janitor and single father. That man is real. He's not a disguise or a temporary identity. But so is Marcus Chen, the man who built a company that employs 10,000 people. You don't have to choose, Emma said. You can be both. Can I? The tech world doesn't exactly accommodate single fathers who want to be home for bedtime stories. Emma smiled. Maybe it's time for someone to change that world. 3 months later, Marcus stood in a converted warehouse in Long Island City that had once housed Metro cleaning services. The space had been transformed into something unprecedented in the tech world, a high-tech incubator designed specifically for working parents. The facility included on-site childcare, flexible schedules, and a corporate culture built around the idea that innovation happened when people's personal lives were stable and supported. It was everything Marcus had learned about what mattered during his 18 months as a night janitor, combined with everything he knew about building successful companies. Lily ran through the open workspace, chasing a robotic toy that Marcus's engineering team had built for her. At 6 years old, she was fearless, curious, and absolutely convinced that her father could build anything. She had adapted to their changed circumstances with the resilience of childhood, understanding only that they had more money now for art supplies and that Daddy's new office had the best playground equipment she had ever seen. The investors are here, Emma said, appearing at Marcus's elbow. She wore a navy business suit and carried a briefcase full of legal documents, but her smile was warm and genuine. 6 months earlier, Emma had left Sterling and Associates to become the chief legal counsel for Marcus's new company, Chen Family Technologies. The name had been Lily's idea. Are you ready? Emma asked. Marcus looked around the workspace, watching parents collaborate on cutting-edge projects while their children played safely nearby. Rosa Martinez, his former supervisor at Metro Cleaning, now ran the facility management with the same warmth and competence she had brought to the cleaning company. Several of his former co-workers had joined the venture, bringing practical skills and perspectives that had proven invaluable in designing technology for real-world problems. I'm ready, Marcus said. The presentation went better than he had hoped. The investors, a combination of venture capital firms and family foundations, understood immediately what Marcus was trying to build. Not just another tech company, but a new model for how business could support both innovation and humanity. After the investors left, Marcus found Lily in the childcare area, carefully constructing a tower out of magnetic blocks. How was your meeting, Daddy? She asked without looking up from her project. Very good. We're going to be able to help a lot of families. Good. Lily added another block to her tower. Families should help each other. Marcus sat down beside her, marveling at the simple wisdom of 6-year-old logic. Where did you learn that? From you, Lily said matter-of-factly. You helped me when I needed helping. Emma helped us when we needed helping. Now we help other people who need helping. That's how families work. That evening, Marcus and Emma walked Lily home through the Queens neighborhood that had become their community. The displacement project had been permanently canceled, and the building where Marcus and Lily lived had been converted into affordable cooperative housing. Several of the families they had met through Emma's lawsuit had become close friends, creating the kind of chosen family that Marcus had never experienced in his previous life. Do you ever regret it? Emma asked as they stopped outside their building, walking away from the traditional path to success. Marcus considered the question, watching Lily skip ahead to greet Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who always had cookies waiting for children who had finished their homework. I regret that it took me so long to understand what success actually means, he said. I regret the years I spent building an empire instead of relationships. but regret walking away from that to become Lily's father? Never. Even when it was hard? Even when you were exhausted and overwhelmed and had no idea what you were doing? Marcus laughed. Especially then. Those were the moments when I was actually learning how to be human. Emma nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Her own relationship with her father had been permanently changed by watching Marcus with Lily. She had finally confronted her dad about his emotional absence during her childhood, and they were slowly building the connection she had always wanted. "Marcus," Emma said as they reached the building entrance, "there's something I need to tell you." "What's that?" "The day we met in the park, when Rebecca was trying to destroy everything you'd built with Lily. Watching you choose your daughter over your safety, your reputation, your old life. That was the moment I knew I was falling in love with you." Marcus stopped walking, turning to face her, fully. "Emma? I know it's complicated," she continued quickly. "I know you have to think about what's best for Lily, and I would never want to disrupt the life you've built together. But I also know that life is short and unpredictable, and sometimes you have to be brave enough to say what's true." Marcus looked at this remarkable woman who had risked her career to help him protect his daughter, who had shown him that love and justice weren't separate things but the same force working in different directions. "Emma," he said gently, "what's best for Lily is seeing that her father is capable of love in all its forms. And what's best for me is building a life with someone who understands that being a parent isn't a limitation on who you can become. It's the foundation for becoming who you're meant to be." The kiss that followed was gentle, hopeful, and witnessed by a 6-year-old girl who clapped her hands and announced to the entire neighborhood that Daddy and Emma were being mushy, but the good kind of mushy. A year later, the three of them stood in the backyard of a house in suburban New York, watching Lily tend the garden she had planted with Emma's help. The tomatoes and flowers had grown exactly as she had dreamed, creating a riot of color and life that attracted butterflies and neighbors in equal measure. Chen Family Technologies had become a model for work-life integration, spawning dozens of similar companies across the country. Marcus split his time between strategic planning and hands-on parenting, often bringing Lily to work when she had school holidays or sick days. The company's innovations in educational technology and family support systems were changing how businesses thought about their responsibilities to employees. But the real transformation was quieter, more personal. Marcus had learned that wealth meant nothing if it wasn't shared, that success meant nothing if it wasn't sustainable, and that love meant everything if it was real. "Daddy," Lily called from her garden, "look, the biggest tomato ever." Marcus walked over to admire her prize-winning vegetable, remembering the small, serious child he had met in that institutional meeting room 3 years earlier. That little girl had been carrying grief and uncertainty that no 5-year-old should bear. This child was confident, loved, and absolutely convinced that she could grow anything she planted. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Marcus said, kneeling down to examine the tomato with appropriate solemnity. "What are you going to do with it?" "Share it," Lily said immediately. "That's what you do with beautiful things. You share them." Emma appeared with a pitcher of lemonade and 3 glasses, settling onto the garden bench that Marcus had built from plans he'd found online. She was 7 months pregnant, and her growing belly was a source of endless fascination for Lily, who talked daily to her future brother or sister about the garden, the neighborhood cats, and all the things they would do together. "How was the board meeting?" Emma asked, handing Marcus a glass. "Productive. We're expanding to Boston and Seattle next year, and the foundation board approved funding for 15 new family support programs in underserved communities." The Chen Foundation, funded by the wealth Marcus had reclaimed from his previous life, focused on supporting single parents, providing affordable childcare, and creating economic opportunities for families in transition. It was the kind of work that felt like purpose rather than obligation. Any regrets about not retiring to a private island somewhere? Emma teased. Marcus looked around their backyard, at Lily's garden, at Emma's growing belly, at the life they had built from love and intention and the willingness to choose people over profit. Not a single one, he said. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, clutching the stuffed elephant that had traveled with her through foster care, loss, and into the security of family, Marcus sat on the porch with Emma, watching the stars appear over their suburban neighborhood. "Do you think she remembers much about before?" Emma asked. "About the uncertainty, the fear?" "I think she remembers that someone chose her," Marcus said. "That when everything was scary and uncertain, someone showed up and stayed. That's what matters." "And what about you? What do you remember from before?" Marcus considered the question. He remembered the emptiness of his penthouse apartment, the isolation of his wealth, the way success had felt hollow when there was no one to share it with. But he also remembered the moment he first saw Lily's photograph, the instant when everything he thought mattered revealed itself as insignificant compared to the possibility of being her father. "I remember learning that the most valuable thing you can own isn't money or property or even freedom," he said. "It's the chance to love someone completely and have them love you back the same way. Even when it's difficult. Even when love means sacrifice and compromise and giving up things you thought you wanted. Especially then," Marcus said. "That's when you know it's real." Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to human concerns about wealth and status and power. But down here, in this small house with its garden and laughter and steadfast commitment to showing up for each other every single day, something magnificent was growing. It wasn't the empire Marcus had once built from ambition and intellect. It was something rarer and more durable, a family created from choice, sustained by love, and rooted in the understanding that the most important success is simply being present for the people who need you most. And in her small bedroom, decorated with her own artwork and filled with books about gardens and stars and all the things she wanted to learn, Lily Chen slept peacefully, absolutely certain that when she woke up, the people who loved her would still be there. Because that's what family meant. Not perfection, but presence. Not wealth, but commitment. Not having everything, but being everything to each other. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that turns out to be worth more than $400 million. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.